Join me on a fascinating journey where I show you some of the techniques used in scale aeromodelling. I thought I'd just quickly have a look at adding the rigging points to the wings. This is quite a difficult bit, and I'm not sure how well it's going to go, but I'm going to show you how I make the rigging. So I've got a roll of 0.4mm copper wire, and it's winding copper, and it's actually varnished. Not that it makes any difference, but it is. So all I do is I take a piece of, I made a little I don't know, a holder. It's a bit of bent piano wire, and it's just to give me the width of loop. Then I just take a small piece of the copper wire, bend a kink in it, and then all I've got to do is grasp it with a pair of pliers. Okay, and then just twist it. Twist and pull. Not hard, but just a steady pull, and you'll see it starts to twist. When you get it nice and even, the spiral is nice and tight, and more importantly, the loop at the end is nice and round and even. And there you go. That's what we're trying to achieve. You can't really see it against any background, can you? So all I do is I now cut that, and I use a scalpel to cut it. And in this case, it needs to be almost, the shank of the part needs to be about 1/4 of an inch long. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert that into holes in the tissue in the wing. So here's the wing. Now when I built it, I don't know whether you can remember that far back, but the spars, which are copper tube, I actually added little short lengths of copper tube to the spars, 6 of them, and it's tube, and it will take a 0.8mm rod. So what I've done is I've made a pinhole right the way through the tissue from one side to the other, so I know where the rod is and where the tube is. So if we take our little piece of our own turned anchor fitting, as it were, and I'm just dipping it in some thick CA, and then the trick is to try and feed it into the tissue hole, find the rod, not the rod, tube, and just push it into the tube. This thick CA should, in theory, stick it into the rod. Now this is not going to be strong. This is not a strong joint, but it's strong enough. So as long as you don't crash the model or do anything stupid, you should get away with this. But it's never going to be a very strong solution. So if you have a habit of knocking your plane off the walls, then these are probably going to pull out, and then you've got a bit of a job trying to repair them. Been tinkering a bit more, so you can see the rudder and elevators are attached. I actually took them off again because I wasn't happy with the position of the alignment of the leading edge of the elevator and the trailing edge of the stabilizer. It should actually be in line, even though there's a gap. So I moved them all out a little bit. You might actually see that I actually had to extend the carbon rod by a fraction. So they're done. I'm not sure how strong they'll be, but we'll see. I've also made the skid assembly, which is just carbon rod with some 1/8 balsa glued to it, and then strengthened with CA and then sanded to shape. And then at the end I've used 2 really tiny slivers of carbon, 4mm wide, oops, come on, focus, 4mm wide carbon flat section either side of the bar, and then drilled a hole through it for a hinge point. And then there's another piece of this is actually made from 2 pieces of 32nd balsa laminated around a piece of 32nd carbon flat sheet, and then with a carbon skid on the top. There's just some shearing elastic wrapped around it there as per the scale unit, and I'll see if it should actually just spring nicely. which will just give me a little bit of an effect. When it's on the ground, it should be open just a bit, just about like that, when it's got the weight of the model on it. So hopefully it'll add a bit of impact resistance. We'll see. With the fuselage work progressing quite well, I thought I'd actually get onto the bit that I really want to do. I've been looking forward to this for the entire build. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to start making the aluminium cladding for the fuselage, for the front of the fuselage. I'm probably not going to get it all done, but I'm just going to do some of it just to give me a bit of a fix. So this is going to be the lower two side sections, one either side under the wing. So what I've done is I've marked these out, or there's two marked out on this piece of lithoplate. Now this is the thin lithoplate, and I'll measure it in a minute and tell you. I think it's 0.13, but I might be wrong. So, as you've seen before, I usually just score it a couple of times and then I'll bend it on the line. I'm just going to use the ruler to make sure that I get it, holds it still. And then we'll fold it flat again and then lift it again. And there we go. That's the easiest way to separate it without distorting it too much. I said I was going to measure it. 0.13. Right, so that's 0.13 lithoplate. I'm just going to lightly score along these lines. I've actually marked it out already to the size of the that I need, and I've just measured the model to get those numbers. You can cut right through if you really want to, but I find just scoring and bending works just as well. So trying it on the model is shown that I need 2 notches, and these notches need to be about 5mm in. Right, go and see what we've got there. So we need to just open the aluminium up a little bit. All I'm using is needle files just to open these holes up. You need to make a fold right along that line. So I'm just going to hold it like that, the 2 pieces together, and bend it while pressing down on the ruler. Okay, so I'm going to scrap that bit because this is curved, and I've actually cut it straight, and it actually needs to be deeper just here, so it's about 1/8 of an inch wrong. So we'll go to my other piece, and we'll make another one. Okay, you can see that I actually had to break off the 2 horizontal beams that were holding these 2 legs together, because I couldn't actually get in with the alley sheet. And the reason I couldn't was because these notches down here, these bits of undercarriage legs, actually make it narrower than the gap, so I've had to break those off. I can always put them back. Here you can see how this is going to fit in. Goes flush with that front edge there and the back, and then it touches at the bottom all the way around. Now what I'm going to use for this, because I may need to, I hope not, but I may need to take these side panels off to get to anything in here at a later stage, so I'm going to use U-Pour for this. And the reason I'm using that is it can be prized apart should you really need to. A little tiny bead all the way around the edge. Just smear it with my finger. We also need to put some obviously on the other surface. Now the way you can do this is put quite a lot on this surface and then press it against the fuselage and then lift it off again, and that will transfer the glue from one to the other. So we're just going to let that flash off for a few seconds. I'm just having a final look at the fuselage to think if there's anything else that I need to do that I haven't done. There's probably some holes I should have made in this before I did this. I'm going to regret this, I know. I'm going to have a look at the photograph just quickly. There is a hole along here for the rudder pedals, or where the rudder cables come out, but I'm not worried about that. I'll do that in situ. So what I do need to do is make sure I get this right, because you only get one shot at this. With a contact adhesive, it doesn't like to lift. So if you get it wrong, oops, that's exactly what you don't want. But actually it's fallen into the right place, which is fortunate. Just push it down all the way around. That's the one side on. Now of course, I've just suddenly thought, typically, not that it matters, but I really should have spray painted the white before I did this. But never mind. Just means we'll have to mask rather than just spray. But I'm not too worried about that. So there you go, that's the one side attached. Now there's a hole here for the rudder pedals and the rudder cable to come out from there to there. And then there's a panel just here as well, but we can add that at a later date, so that's all good. Let's just have a look at the edge here. It is nicely sealed, and it has closed up nicely. The gap's good. And there we go. So now all we got to do is the other side. So we'll come back once that's done, and you can see how that's all gone together. So just to prove that we're all fallible, and me especially, if anybody's more fallible it's going to be me. So I made another panel for the other side, and I made it the wrong way up. This is the good side. Because I've made it the wrong way around, all I'm going to do is sand this paint finish off. Now what you've got to be really careful of is the material snagging the sponge of the sandpaper. If it does and it creases up and kinks, it'll be a right mess and you may have to scrap it. You can see it cleans up quite well. Just don't be impatient, otherwise you might catch the edge and kink it. And if I do that on camera, I apologise now for swearing. Now the Blackburn Monoplane, the sides, although I was told they're polished aluminium. They're not. It's kind of a weathered finish. Maybe it was polished at some time, I don't know, and it's just sort of tarnished over time. The upper surfaces above the wings and the cowl at the front, they are polished. And these lower surfaces could be polished, but it would take a lot of work and probably take a lot of maintenance to keep it like that. So I dare say what's happened is the guys at Old Warden polished the upper section, which is going to be a lot of work in itself, but they don't do the lower section. I think they just keep it clean. So I'm not going to polish the lower section, although I probably can find some pictures somewhere going back through the years of it being polished. But most of the pictures I've seen, this section is kind of just like this. It's quite a nice looking finish. You can see it comes off fairly easily. One of the drawbacks of doing this is that other section that I've already attached to the model, I'm now going to have to sand in situ to get this same finish, because it'll look a bit odd if I have one side that's like this and the other side that's, you know, sort of a shinier side, or a raw finish. Whether that means taking that other side back off again, it's a thought, so that I can finish it properly, which was another good reason for using the Yoo-hoo pour, because I know I can gently prise that back off again. As I was attaching it, I had this thought that really I shouldn't be attaching it. I should be putting surface detail onto this while it's in this flat state, and then put it on the model with all the surface detail done. But I was keen to see how it looked, so it's my own fault. Less haste, more speed, so to say. All I'm doing is putting lines on the lithoplate where I want the screw heads to be, and I'll show you how I'm going to do these in a minute. There's actually a row all the way along here as well, so I will add them. Now, you've seen me do this before when I did panels and rivets and screws and stuff like that on the Oster video set. So what I'm going to do now is punch very gently from the back little tiny marks exactly where all the rivets would be. But on the Blackburn, they're not rivets, they're screws, or actually possibly looking like nails almost, but they're probably screws. So I'm going to go and measure the drawings and see how far apart they need to be. Then I'll put little marks all the way around where I want them to be, and I'll go and find my little punch and we'll start punching. That'll do nicely. It's a very gentle tap. So this is my little smaller punch. So just place it and just a gentle tap. You can see the little marks that we're getting. So I'm now going to go and work out what the spacing is and how many of these we need to actually apply. Right, well, that's the back, that's the front, that's the back, top, bottom, and this is the inside. So this is the side we're going to do. Right, so we want 11 of these beasties down the back. This is the back. So we want one in the corner. So let's measure the height of this section. And it's 63 mil. So we divide 63 millimeters by 9. So that gives us 7 millimeters. So let's see if we can actually mark or make a little bit of a ruler on a piece of lithoplate. So we want 7 millimeters, 5, 6, 7. So that's a 7 millimeter increment. So I'm then going to use, that's the front, so I'm going to just use it as a ruler. Now I could make a ruler with lots more increments, but I think this will do. There we go, exactly the right spacing. The ones across the top, there's 16 of them across the top, but they're not the same spacing. So if we look at the length of this, I've got 16 across the top, and it's 237. That gives us a spacing of 14 millimeters. That seems awfully large. Is it double? It is. Yeah, looking at the photograph, it is double what you're seeing on the upright. So we'll do another one. Where's our ruler gone? There. So we'll do another one at 14. At 14 millimeter increments. So obviously one in the corner. I'm going to come just in a little bit on that one. Oops, should be there. Just the line. And there. And then go back to 14 again. I've got one there, and one on the corner. The more I think about this, the more I'm going to take that other panel back off. Do it again. Certainly can't do this with it in situ. And we get punching. I think we've got the right end. One end is polished, it's rounded. Just a gentle tap. If you want these more pronounced, put them on a softer surface. And if we look on the other side, we've just got the very slight indentations as if something's there. Now what I'm going to do next is the rudder lead out cutouts. They need sorting out. And I haven't got them for this side, but I'm pretty sure they're going to be exactly the same as on the other side. Once I've figured out where they are and marked them out, I'll just cut the holes where they're going to be. So here's this side panel all made, ready to go. And it fits in like that, with the nice detailing on it. So I think I am going to try and prise the other side off and get the finish similar to this, which is not brushed, it's just a sort of a, I don't know, steel wool look to it. But I put the rudder linkage hole in. There's a little notch there as well where the cable goes from here to there. So I'm going to have to mount something inside there to run along a fake, something fake in here. So I'll do that next, and then we can actually add this to the fuselage. Had a very productive evening on the Blackburn. So a lot of the side work is done. You can see the elevators, rudder, everything's all sorted now. There's something rather special under there, a properly sprung skid with elastic shock cord. If we come to the front, we can see that the alloy panelling on the side is done. You might not be able to see it, but all the little screws are there as well. They're just dimples at the moment, but they're actually screws. You'll also see that I've made an arm, and you can see the cable that goes to the rudder. It's a bit odd on the Blackburn in that it goes outside the fuselage and then inside, and then comes out at the top of the fuselage. It's very strange, but that's how it works. So that's how I've done it. So I'll just peek around the other side, and you can see that the other side is the same. All the alloy plating is done. The wheels are just slipped on temporarily. The two horizontal bars that I had to break off, I've not put back yet. I'm going to wait until I've completely finished that area before I do anything else. But as you can see, that's all looking pretty good. So the next step is probably to look at the rear cowling that goes over the back of the seat, and then the front cowling. But just this evening, before I finish, I'm going to make the triangular plate that blocks off that section of the fuselage. So there we have the front section, lower front section that is, all clad in lithoplate. So you can see I've closed off the front section. I couldn't actually do it in one piece as per the full size. I just could not make a piece that would fit in there. I couldn't get it in. So I've done it in two pieces. I don't think it looks too bad. So that's the cladding on the side. You can't really see the... let me just try something. Let's bring a light down, if I can. See if I can create a shadow. I think that helps a little bit. You can see the studs. They're dimples actually in the lithoplate, but they'll simulate screws. So there we go. That's the rudder assembly that I showed you earlier. It's all done using the techniques I've shown you before. Just cut the lithoplate with a ruler and a scalpel. You just score it, fold it, bend it. You just got to be very careful. This is all attached with Yoo-hoo paw, so it is removable. This is the side I took back off again and redid. I cut the hole in it and added the dimples and a little bit more detail before I glued it back on again. It's distorted the shape at the top a little bit, but that's all going to be covered by the top cowling sections anyway, which are the next things I'm going to look at. So I think that'll do for this video. It's just a quick catch up on what's going on. I've not bothered to film my antics doing this because they've taken so long to do. I think just the explanation of how I've done it is probably enough. See you on the next one.